everyone. So welcome to the Direct Shipping Virtual Seminar. I'm going to go ahead and get started. We've got a great hour planned for you. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Zoe Waddell. I'm an account manager for ShipCompliant's growing marketplace product, and I'm honored to be your MC for today's seminar. We've got a great turnout today. We're expecting close to 700 wine industry professionals on the call. Thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. In fact, just being here shows your commitment to staying up to date in this constantly evolving industry. It's also a really exciting opportunity for us here at ShipCompliant to share with you what we work on every day and also what's new in the world of compliance. So for those of you who don't work with ShipCompliant already, before we get any further, I wanted to take a moment to explain exactly what it is ShipCompliant does. ShipCompliant launched in 2005. Our mission is to make it easy for wineries, spirits producers, importers, states, and industry suppliers to operate compliantly, efficiently, and profitably. ShipCompliant has 3 distinct product lines. ShipCompliant Direct, as you see here, is our first product, and it's used by 800 plus wineries across the U.S. to ship wine directly to consumers in their home, and it automates their direct-to-consumer compliance and reporting. ShipCompliant Wholesale is a complete 3-tier compliance automation platform that's used by wineries, importers, and distilleries. And our third arm, our newest product, ShipCompliant Marketplace, is a platform that helps suppliers, whether they be wineries or importers, operate and sell through third parties in a compliant and scalable fashion, and vice versa. So if you're a consumer company and you want to be able to sell wine, ShipCompliant Marketplace gives you an opportunity to connect with suppliers and market their wines to your customers. So now I'm going to walk through a few logistics and some housekeeping. So right now you are all muted. What that means is you should be able to hear us, but we cannot hear you. We encourage your questions today. If you have a question at any point during the next hour, please type your question in to the box here where you see the yellow arrow. We're going to collect the questions and try and answer as many as we can during the Q&A after the presentation. If we don't get to your question, please don't worry. We're going to be following up with you after the presentation. So we typically get a lot of questions about presentation materials. Just to try and head some of those off, we are going to be making video of the presentation available online starting on Monday. And then just lastly, if you find this question box distracting, you can always minimize it by clicking on the orange arrow at the top left of the box. And just one more thing, there are going to be polls appearing on your screen intermittently throughout the presentation, and you may have already seen a poll. They're really quick and fun, so keep your eye out for them. As soon as you answer a poll question, you're going to be returned to the presentation. So here's the agenda for today. Let me quickly read through it so you know exactly what to expect. So we're just about through the introductions. Next up is Jeff Karo, ShipCompliant VP of Compliance. He's going to walk you through some direct shipping updates. He'll be followed by Jason Eckenroth, ShipCompliant CEO, who's going to tell you about working with third-party marketers. After the presentation, we'll have 10 minutes for Q&A, and then we'll be announcing our upcoming events and making a special promotion announcement. So please make sure to stick around until the end to hear some exciting news. So let's get started. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our first presenter. Jeff Karo heads the strategy and compliance arms of ShipCompliant. He's been in this role since 2005 and is charged with overseeing the direction and update of ShipCompliant products and services that allow suppliers of alcoholic beverages to ship and distribute their products efficiently and in compliance with thousands of state and federal regulations.
Zoe. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today during this busy holiday season. I hope that your holiday sales are going fantastically. We really appreciate your time. This is going to be the Power Hour. I'm going to go through some material. Jason's going to go through some material. We're going to answer questions. These slides are going to be available, as is the video. Please type your questions into the question and answer feature of GoToWebinar, and we will try our best to get to all of them. My role today is going to be the same that it is every day in ShipCompliant, and that is to take full credit for all the hard work that our research team does here at ShipCompliant. Sarah Warner and Jessamine Bolt are behind the scenes here. They're the ones that stay on top of legislation. They stay on top of litigation. They stay on top of rule changes, regulatory changes, form changes, permit changes, reporting changes, tax changes. Everything that goes into this product is driven by this team. This is a special thanks to them. Sarah Warner actually has now the second longest tenure at ShipCompliant, next to Jason. Jason founded the company in 2000. Just this month, Michael Leakey, who was one of our senior developers, left ShipCompliant. He moved to Australia for a fun and exciting adventure. We're all very excited for him, and he did a great job here. Michael was here for 10 years to the day at ShipCompliant, but has now moved on. That means Sarah is next in line. Sarah, in January, is going to be celebrating her 8-year anniversary at ShipCompliant. So thanks to our fantastic research team. All right, starting with the compliance basics. Last year, every year there's about 262 million cases of wine produced in the United States. 20% of that is sold on-premise. 80% is sold off-premise. The direct-to-consumer slice of that pie is, which we consider part of the off-premise pie, is 3% of production. Of that, roughly 60% is carried out of the tasting room, and so that the remaining 40 then represents roughly 1% of production that's actually shipped to consumers. So it's a small number when you think about it from a production standpoint, but it's a very important channel. It's growing. We've seen double-digit growth for the last couple of years, and there is no reason whatsoever to see that slowing down. We would predict significant growth again in 2013. So again, just some compliance basics. This is kind of where we stand. So an on-site sale, remember, means something specific. It means that the customer was physically present at your winery, and they made a purchase, and instead of taking the wine back home with them in their car or on the plane, they elected to have it shipped back to themselves. That's considered an on-site sale. So for on-site sales, you can ship to 44 states if you're a producing winery. In California, that means you have an O2 license, a federal basic permit to manufacture wine. So if you are shipping, a common question that we get is if a wine club customer, or if somebody visits your tasting room and then signs up for your wine club, can that be considered an on-site sale? No, it can't. Maybe the first shipment for that wine club customer could be considered an on-site sale. Subsequent shipments would be considered off-site sales. So if you have a wine club member from South Dakota, you are doing something wrong. Everything else is considered an off-site sale. So internet, from your website, wine club, gifts, phone, mail, fax orders, these are all considered off-site sales. Orders from third parties are also considered off-site sales. Jason's going to talk a little bit more about that. The off-site landscape, wineries can ship to about 40 states. Most of these states require permits. If you are still referring to reciprocal states, you're about a year and a half late because the concept of reciprocity no longer exists. New Mexico changed in 2011, and that was the last remaining reciprocal states for wineries. The vast majority of these states require a permit to ship for off-site sales. Since Granholm, the Granholm versus Heald Supreme Court decision of 2005, we've seen tremendous growth in the number of states that allow direct-to-consumer shipping. We're up to 40 states right now, and that represents almost 89% of consumers in the United States. Another common mistake that people make is that a retailer, which can mean a whole number of things, including virtual wineries, holders of 1720 permits, holders of the new Type 85 permit in California, they can only ship to 14 states. And so if you fall into that category and you're looking at the Wine Institute website, which has the states that wineries can ship to, you're in the wrong place. Retailers, unfortunately, at this point can only ship to 14 states for direct-to-consumer sales. Okay, I'm going to talk about several updates today. These are the states that I'm going to talk about. The first is Virginia. Virginia passed a law actually back in 2010. And just this month, they got around to publishing the regulations associated with this rule, associated with this bill that was passed in 2010. There's two parts to it. The first part has to do with third-party marketing or internet portals, I believe that they refer them to. This has effectively prohibited the notion of third-party marketing in Virginia because before you can complete a third-party sale, the third party that you're working with must have been approved by the Virginia ABC as an agricultural cooperative. Now, if you're asking what is an agricultural cooperative, my answer is I have no idea. So therefore, it's probably the case that nobody's going to qualify. But that remains to be seen. So for right now, we're advising people third-party marketing is off limits in the state of Virginia. The second component to the Arizona law has to do with fulfillment houses. So effective November 4, if you are using a fulfillment house, a fulfillment warehouse to ship your wines into Virginia, that warehouse must be approved in advance by the state of Virginia. The Virginia ABC has established a process. And by the way, in this PowerPoint, which we're going to make available, you'll see that there's links. You can see enacted on November 4th here is a link, and that's going to take you out to various blog posts and description and links so that you can get more information if you're looking for it. If you're going to ship from a fulfillment house into Virginia, that fulfillment house has to have been approved by the ABC. It's a pretty straightforward process that they've outlined in the regulations. Basically, that fulfillment house has to send in a copy of their home state license. So for California fulfillment houses, that's a Type 14 public warehouse license. And then the fulfillment house lists all of the wineries that they're going to be shipping on behalf of. And Virginia has said that the winery and the fulfillment house must execute either a contract that says that they're going to be fulfilling into Virginia on behalf of the winery, or an addendum that stays the same. And they are working on right now a template, a boilerplate that can be used as an addendum that they've kind of pre-approved that can be sent in. So again, if you're using a fulfillment house, which lots of people do, especially in Northern California, make sure that they've been approved by the Virginia ABC. There's one exception to this rule, and that is that since 2010, the Virginia ABC has put in place a workaround. This temporary workaround was to allow wineries to get a second permit into Virginia at the premise of their fulfillment location. So they have one permit at their winery premise, a second permit at their fulfillment location. If you did that, if you have those permits, what the ABC is saying is that you can continue to ship to Virginia under that second license until it expires. They won't be renewing those second permits, but you can continue to use it until it expires. One thing to keep in mind with that is that if you have those two permits, then you have to submit to excise tax reports to to Virginia each period. So it may be a simpler process to just get approval and then ship under a single license. New Jersey was actually the only state to open its borders to direct-to-consumer shipping in 2012. It's a slow year compared to the years that we've experienced since 2005, but it's a pretty big state. However, only 43 wineries have actually obtained permits in New Jersey so far this year, even though it opened on May 1st. There's a good reason for that. First of all, there's a 250,000 gallon capacity cap. So if you're above that, you're not eligible for the permit in New Jersey. Second of all, it's a very costly permit, $938. On top of that, there's some complications related to paying corporate income taxes and a very messy permitting process. So a lot of people are holding off on filing for that New Jersey permit in anticipation of potential legislation in 2013 that may simplify some of these problems. That $938 permit for those that are selling to wholesalers or selling to retailers in New Jersey, it covers all three. It covers direct shipping, sales to wholesalers, and sales to retailers. But for the majority of you that are only wanting to do direct shipping into New Jersey, that's a pretty expensive permit. Two states, we actually just published a blog post either yesterday or the day before, simplified their permitting process. Idaho went a long way to streamline their process and make it easier for you to obtain and renew those permits. We've got links out to those instructions. We wrote a blog post that clarifies it. New York, good news and bad news. The good news is there's less paperwork to file with the New York SLA. Bad news is that it's a $125 annual fee. You have to pay $375 up front now for 3 years. So a little bit simpler, but a more costly investment up front. Connecticut made a change whereas before, if you used a national marketing company, a company like a co-brand that was representing your brands in Connecticut, they would have had to register your labels in Connecticut, and Connecticut wasn't allowing you then to get a label registration for the same product for your direct shipping license. They changed that, so now you can have both a registration with your national marketing company and a registration for your direct-to-consumer shipping program. So that's a good change in Connecticut. Connecticut, again, is a very expensive state because it's $200 per label to get your products registered. Georgia is one of many states that are moving towards online filing requirements. So as of September 4th, 2012, Georgia is now requiring label registrations and excise taxes to be filed online. Two states that you hear a lot about, that you've been hearing about for the last 2, 3, 4 years are Massachusetts and Pennsylvania. As you remember, in Massachusetts, there was the family winemakers case in the First Circuit that overturned their capacity cap and really wasn't a lot of ways a win for wineries, struck some of the really problematic provisions of their statute. But a couple of problematic provisions still remain. The biggest one being that for FedEx and UPS to actually deliver wine into Massachusetts, they would have to get each of their trucks that would have the possibility of delivering wine licensed separately. So it would be very costly, very complicated for the carriers. It's really not a workable system right now. For the last 2 years, there's been legislation that has attempted to fix some of these non-workable provisions of the statute. They have both died in committee, have not moved out, did not get passed. So there will be another effort next year in Massachusetts. Pennsylvania is a difficult state for direct shipping. Technically, there is the farm winery permit. Not very many out-of-state wineries have actually obtained that permit. The state store shipping method is very complicated and expensive. Pennsylvania really isn't a state that people can ship into effectively for direct-to-consumer sales. There's been bills, again, the last couple of years, and the state of Pennsylvania is really making an effort to, I guess there's two parallel efforts. One is to privatize the system, which I'll talk about in a minute, and the other is to modernize the control system. Part of that modernization, and I think that they've established a 6-point program to modernize the PLCB, is to allow for direct shipping, workable direct shipping system in Pennsylvania. So that bill will get carried over next year, and we expect to see some action on that bill. The big question in Pennsylvania is whether or not the Johnstown flood tax applies. There's an 18%, for those of you in Pennsylvania that are familiar, there's an 18% Johnstown flood tax. There's also a 6% sales tax. So if the Johnstown flood tax is kept in this legislation, then that would be a 24% tax, which would be very costly to consumers in Pennsylvania. But it remains to be seen. Hopefully there's some action in Pennsylvania next year. So those are the 2012 updates. I do want to take you through a few more things. A reminder that in January is the big end-of-year reporting season. If you're shipping to all of the states that you could be shipping to, come January you're going to have to file 90 reports. 18 annual reports, 2 semi-annual, 29 quarterly, and 41 monthly reports all come due in January. Now is a good time to start getting all of your data in order. Make sure you have those tracking numbers. Make sure you have all your dates of birth and that your data is clean so that come January we can get these 90 reports out the door efficiently. We're obviously here to help with that. So start preparing now, and our client services team is going to help ensure that you're successful with that. Maine and Washington are 2 states that have new options for annual filing. In Maine, beginning in 2013, you'll start to file annually. So not this January, but in January of 2014, you'll file your Maine annual report. And in Washington, they made an annual filing option available. There was a deadline to apply that has passed. If you're selling less than 6,000 gallons into Washington, you can apply for the annual filing option. And so if you applied and received that, you can file that starting this January. Otherwise, if you expect it to sell less than 6,000 gallons in Washington in the next calendar year, you can apply now for an annual filing option that would start in January of 2014. You've heard a lot about privatization over the last several years, and on June 1st of this year, I guess a year ago, in 2011, the voters in Washington approved a ballot initiative that privatized the Washington state control system. And that took effect on June 1st of this year. That was the first state to privatize, and everybody kind of keeping an eye on how that's developing in Washington. It really didn't affect you as a winery shipping directly to consumers in Washington that much, but it's something that we're monitoring closely as there will likely be privatization efforts, certainly in Pennsylvania, maybe in Oregon and Idaho. Other states are really keeping an eye on what's happening in Washington. So that's something to look out for and may potentially affect direct shipping in other states. Again, Pennsylvania for the last several years has really made a push to privatize. You'll see that again in 2013, no doubt. Another thing you've been hearing a lot about for the last 3 years is quote-unquote CARE Act. This was a piece of federal legislation that would have given states much more authority, and that really has gone nowhere. It got a hearing, but the WSWA, the Wine and Spirit Wholesalers Association, really said that the CARE Act is off the table. the end of this year, that will be officially dead. It's possible that something like that could be introduced in the future, but at this time, it really doesn't seem to have any momentum. For a year and a half, it really hasn't moved anywhere. Another thing that we're watching really closely is TTB. As you know, TTB, along with other federal agencies and state agencies, really has seen their budget go south. And it's a double whammy because the number of COLA applications has really increased. And so wineries have been frustrated by longer and longer approval times, 4-week COLA application time. And TTB has been making a concerted effort for the last couple of years to fix this. They understand this is a challenge. They've been working on it. You've heard several updates throughout this year about changes that are now allowed that should really reduce the number of COLAs that they get. Lots of different things can be changed on a label now that do not require a new COLA application. TTB on their website, which we've got a link to, provides lots of different examples of labels that could be changed that wouldn't actually require the filing of a new COLA. So if you have an ABV change, even if it's above, moves you into a different tax class, if your graphics, your logo changes, there's a list of things that TTB identified that can now change that would not require a new COLA. Look at those examples on the website. As you can see, this Lighthouse Cellars, it's a completely different label, but the majority of the information is the same. You can see here that this product went from a 13.5% alcohol by volume to a 15%. That moved it into a tax class, a different tax class, but still does not require a new label approval. So hopefully that makes it easier for you in a less frustrating process to get your labels approved. One thing to note on TTB is that they're also moving towards more of they would like to move to more of an FDA model where you actually don't require a formal review of the label, a formal pre-approval. And so we're going to hear a lot more from TTB over the coming years as they continue to modify this whole process, this label approval process. And we're going to really stay on top of that. Hopefully we can work closely with TTB and make this a seamless process for everybody. As you know, a lot of the states rely on these COLAs to do their label approval process. So we're gonna do our part to help make that a seamless process. Looking forward into 2013, as I mentioned, Massachusetts, there will be another bill introduced. It will be another fix-it bill that will try to take care of these issues related to the consumer aggregate volume limit and the fleet license for the carriers. Pennsylvania, as part of their efforts to modernize the PLCB, there will be a bill there. There will probably be a bill in New Jersey that would potentially simplify the process, potentially remove the capacity cap. Should expect some action there. Remember that in North Dakota, the ABC in North Dakota still is prohibiting shipments from fulfillment houses. I think there's been a lot of collaboration with the North Dakota folks to try to get that resolved, but at this point in time, they are still saying that shipments from fulfillment house to North Dakota are prohibited. Again, Virginia they publish their regulations, but they're still working on the process for getting these approvals by the fulfillment houses. We're going to keep you updated on the blog and make you aware of any changes. Hopefully there's an approved contracted addendum template that can be used so that you can easily work with your third-party fulfillment house. Again, TTB is looking to really streamline the pre-approval requirements, so we can expect to hear more from them. And also, further clarification on third-party marketing, a lot of states are looking at that right now. Obviously, that's a hot topic. Jason's going to be talking about that. I was just down in Texas yesterday at a Texas ABC meeting about on the concept of third-party marketing. So states are looking at this issue, and we'll certainly keep you up to date as we learn more. Okay, that is the end of my presentation. I will be back for questions. Remember that these materials are going to be available after the seminar. We'll get them to you by Monday. At the latest, type your questions into the question and answer feature. If you have them, I will not answer them. Sarah will answer them. She'll tell me what to say, and I'll say it. Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to introduce Jason Eckenroth. Jason Eckenroth founded ShipCompliant in the year 2000. He is the founder and the CEO and the man with the plan. Jason, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Actually, I'm in California today. The main office is in Boulder. So before I begin, I just want to thank everyone on the team for pulling us together, and really excited to have hundreds and hundreds of people tuning in for this. So let's get right to it. I'm going to make sure I can move the slides, and I can. And so what I'm going to review today is a 5-point checklist in working with third-party marketers. Working with third-party marketers can be challenging for a lot of different reasons. So what we want to do today with the 5-point checklist is to help explain to you how the various states are taking a look at this issue, how the model has evolved. Third-party marketing is unique. It's not winery direct, which is governed by explicit rules and typically legislation. It's not 3-tier distribution, which is governed by rulemaking and legislation. And so it is a very dynamic channel that we will certainly see a lot of changes in over the next few years. So point number 1, know your ABCs. What do I mean by that? Well, just over a year ago, the California ABC published an industry advisory on third-party providers. This was a major turning point for the industry, because prior to the advisory, there really wasn't a good amount. There was a good amount of uncertainty for both wineries and for third-party marketers. The advisory was important because it provided clear guidelines on how wineries and third-party marketers can work together compliantly. Keep in mind that this advisory from a year ago only applies to those doing business in California, but it is also being used by other states as a model and a process framework for evaluating their rules and regulations for sales to third-party marketers. This was a big deal for the industry, and the results have been pretty astounding in terms of both the number of third parties that are beginning to market and sell wine to consumers who have never purchased wine online before, but also the increased level of participation by wineries. And, granted, all parties involved are learning as they go, but we certainly have seen a nice increase, particularly over the last this fourth quarter. So, what is a third-party marketer exactly? Well, the California ABC, prior to the 2011 advisory, took a stab at defining this with their previous advisory that was published in 2009. In 2009, they said a third-party provider is a person or business operating internet websites for the purpose of promoting, marketing, or selling alcoholic beverages. They also referred to them as both marketing agents, compliance agents, agents of the consumer, agents of the winery, agents of the retailer, fulfillment operators, logistics providers, affiliate marketers, and other descriptors. But you've used those terms, when you are speaking with a regulator, you're speaking with a marketer, you kind of understand who falls into this category of third-party marketing. I think I actually saw some Q&As from the audience, specifically querying on different types of businesses and whether they fall into that category in relation and also the guidance that we've received from other states regarding third-party providers, or TPPs, it pretty clearly can be distilled down to 4 different elements of licensing control. The most important aspect of this is that licensees are ultimately responsible for every transaction with third parties. It's your license that is on the line here. So it's critical that you understand all of the aspects of each of the third-party programs that you participate in. The areas to focus, though, are, well, number 1, transparency, number 2, compliance, number 3, acceptance, and 4, payment control. These are the 4 categories that we distilled from the guidance that we received from the state regulatory bodies. Now, more specifically, for each program that you participate in, understand, 1, how the TPP puts you in control of both the placement and the pricing of your products. Number 2, whether or not the TPP is representing to the consumer who that consumer is actually doing business with, which would be you, the licensee. Number 3, how does acceptance work? It's important that you always have the opportunity to accept or reject every order from a third-party provider. If they are processing orders from consumers and shipping it before you have an opportunity to and can demonstrate to a regulator that you can accept or reject, that's a red flag. Number 4, where will fulfillment happen, and how will you control the process of fulfillment? Are you going to ship in-house or ship from a third party? Are you going to ship all products in the same location or different? And how does that relate to what the marketer has in mind in terms of their quality of service promise to their consumer? Next, how do the funds flow? This is a very important one. When and how do you receive control of the funds? How often do you get paid, and who's generating the invoices? These are great questions to ask of a TPP when you're considering working with them. So let's dig into some of these a little further. Acceptance is one of the key issues. You should always have the opportunity to accept or reject any third-party order. If you're using ShipCompliance Marketplace platform, the way we handle it is we'll always send you an email. This is an example of the email we can send out with all the order details and fulfillment information prior to ever releasing those orders for fulfillment. These emails can be batched once or multiple times a day, but most importantly, it's an auditable record of the acceptance process. So always make sure that the programs you're participating in give you this kind of clear option to accept or reject each order. Again, the most important thing to remember as a winery or an importer is that you are responsible. And the third-party providers make that pretty clear. Your licenses are on the line. You'll be the first one contacted if there are any issues with that program. And so it is incumbent upon you to understand the nature and the way that any third-party program is adopting these steps. According to the CABC advisory, let's talk about marketing fees for a moment. According to the CABC advisory, marketing fees must be reasonable. The marketing agent should not get a majority of the funds from the transactions, for example. You should not only be in control of the pricing and placement of any of your products, but it's also a good idea to monitor the sites where your products are listed to make sure that the marketer is following your guidelines. Service providers, that is, marketers, fulfillment providers, technology providers, should invoice the licensed seller for their services. It should be paid by the licensed seller. So if there's a marketplace that has a number of different parties involved, make sure the licensee is paying each of those parties, that those parties are not being paid directly by the marketer for services to you, the licensee. Point number 2, know how funds get handled. The single most important issue for the regulators is who controls the money. This is sometimes the hardest, but it's also the most important detail to understand when working with a third-party program. You, as the licensee, should be in control of the funds throughout the entire process. There are a few different ways to achieve this. The most common way is to have the credit card funds settled directly into an escrow account that is governed by instructions that you, the licensee, have established with the third party. other industries, like, let's say that they commonly sell a non-regulated product to their consumer base, they're likely going to have to change their processes in order to work in the one industry. Because they're typically going to charge, the way that most industries work is they'll charge the credit cards and hold the funds for a period of time before paying back out to their suppliers. But as the ABC advisory says, funds should always be in control by the licensed seller. And so you really can't have those funds held for that period of time. Number 3, how is compliance handled? So remember that you're using, in a producer direct marketplace model, your direct shipping licenses when working with a third-party marketer. So these orders must be consolidated and aggregated against the orders from your other channels. So if you are operating a wine club and a tasting room and your own website, those are winery direct orders. Those are different orders than a third-party order, an order that is transacting on a different channel. Now, as those orders are being transacted in that third-party channel, obviously the state is still holding you accountable for the volumes that you are shipping, say, through an online flash site or an online, the world's largest marketplace, compared to your wine club. In fact, at ShipCompliant, we see quite a decent amount, about 20% crossover with suppliers that are working with third parties. Now, it's great that 80% of the sales are coming from new consumers that haven't purchased from you before. But 1 in 5 have purchased from you and do have volume limit restrictions that you have to recognize. So consolidating those orders is a key point. Now, obviously, we recommend you run a real-time compliance check so that there is no opportunity for mistakes or actually accepting and shipping an order that is not compliant with the rest of your volumes. This is one of the paradoxes of third-party marketing. A lot of suppliers seem to be interested in it. They want it to be an additive, incremental revenue opportunity for them. But they also realize it's going to be incremental. And you simply don't want that incremental revenue to put the rest of your business at risk. So find ways of mitigating that through ensuring that the marketer is doing compliance at the time of transaction. Another challenge for third-party marketers is collecting accurate sales tax for each transaction. Sales tax rates for wines are different than books and CDs. For example, New Hampshire, Wyoming, Texas all have unique tax structures for wine products. Also, every winery has different tax circumstances. Some wineries have tax census in a given state, while other wineries choose to pay local taxes instead of putting that on their customers. If the third-party marketer is not collecting accurate tax based on your, as a licensee, your tax preferences, it's going to drive your accounting department absolutely nuts. And it's going to be hard to reconcile. Again, one of those issues of, this is less of a legal concern and more of a how viable is this, how much is it costing me in terms of labor to participate in this channel. So tax collection is one of those hidden costs to consider. Make sure that the third party is always displaying your accurate name to the consumer, ideally also an address, and that this display occurs in the cart and on the consumer invoices. Also stay on top of any rules that may be different from third-party marketing orders. For example, as Jeff mentioned earlier, Virginia has passed legislation specifically regarding third-party marketing that disallows it for anything other than a, quote, agricultural cooperative. Now, that's just Virginia, but as I mentioned in the beginning, these are new channels. It's shifting rapidly. And we highly recommend that you adopt certain workflows now to ensure that as the landscape changes moving forward, that that every one of your programs is following the exact same policies and procedures that keep you safe from a legal perspective. Now, your objectives. For example, do you want to reach more consumers? Do you want to grow your top-line shipping revenue or increase your profitability? When you're evaluating a program, understand if it's going to be a good fit for your brand. Also, some will give you access to the consumer's email and phone number for follow-up marketing purposes, and some will not. Others will allow you to put inserts into the packages that you're shipping out. Others will not. So obviously, all of these points kind of go into the calculus for you and your team to determine, okay, this is going to be a good fit for our brand, be a good fit for our business. Again, that's not really compliance related, but certainly just keep those things in mind before you invest too much time and effort into this. Obviously answers to these questions will also help you determine just how much inventory you're going to allocate to each program that you decide to participate in. In the wine industry is very unique. Inventory is not unlimited. And so it is important to allocate carefully. Finally, point number 5. How do you measure success? It's always important in business to continuously measure success. Before you participated in this program, you had certain expectations for how it would go. Did the third-party program meet your expectations? How were your margins? How much revenue did you make? How many new customers did you acquire? All these questions will help you understand your return on investment and your strategy moving forward. So obviously, best practices here is to set those expectations up front, participate, and measure the results. And then reevaluate what you're doing and allocate inventory appropriately. At ShipCompliant, we've examined the requirements for participating in third-party sales. And we knew that quite a few of our winery clients really wanted to be able to participate in them. I think in general, what I've heard is, it's an exciting new channel, but it's a channel that wineries want to be able to participate in with little cost and effort to them. But put yourself in the marketer's shoes. Okay, they see wine as a lifestyle product that may resonate with their consumer base, but again, they're not experts in the fulfillment, the compliance, the necessarily the merchandising of wine to consumers. And so, from their perspective, they need to be able to do this easily as possible so that it's a viable channel for them. It doesn't work for anyone if one of the parties in that equation where it's not financially or operationally sustainable. So what we've done at ShipCompliant is to build a platform to make it as easy as possible for our wineries. And this is actually, I know we have quite a few non-clients on the call today. This is also available to non-clients as well, to help them participate in third-party sales with very little effort, and enabling, obviously, all the steps that we've talked about before. And from a third-party marketer perspective, the opposite is true. They need a platform to be able to access and work with the incredibly fragmented wine industry. And that's what we've created. What you're looking at here is actually the real dashboard within the ShipCompliant program for our winery clients where they can monitor the various programs that they're in. They can, they can either identify new programs that they're not participating in, or they can drill into one that they are and examine its performance, allocate new inventory, update their pricing and positioning of their products, etc. So it's a pretty robust platform. Obviously, this is an exciting channel that's evolving very quickly. If you have any interest in this or you want to learn more about it, on our website, right on the front page, there's an area for ShipCompliant Marketplace. Just go ahead and click on that. And if you're a 3PM, there's an area for you. If you're a supplier, there's an area for you. So, one final note. Certain marketplaces within ShipCompliant are marked as ShipCompliant Marketplace Certified. You can see the little badge in the lower right-hand corner. What that means is that we've helped these companies specifically to adopt these 5 forms of third-party marketing and have certified their workflow and financial disclosure methods, etc., so that our clients have the convenience of knowing that, okay, if they vet the process of one, they're going to be able to have that replicated across the various channels that they're participating in. So that's just another extra effort that we've undertaken to help make it manageable for suppliers to participate. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to the Boulder and move into Q&A.
So I'm really excited to announce a special offer today to kick off the holiday season right. It's the time of year where you're probably shipping more orders, than any other time, and you have less and less time to spend on reporting and compliance. So if you sign up for a ShipCompliant direct account by December 31st, we won't bill you until February of next year. This is a huge deal, and with up to 90 reports due in January, as Jeff mentioned, it comes at a really good time. It's a 100% risk-free offer for you to kick the tires and give ShipCompliant a test run to complete all of your 2012 year-end reporting for free. So if you're interested in getting more information on this, please contact our sales team. They can be reached at sales@shipcompliant.com or at 888-449-5285. So there are some additional resources I just want to point out. For those of you who haven't already visited ShipCompliant.com, I really encourage you to take a look at our site. There are a ton of free resources, and those resources are available for everyone. The ShipCompliant blog is a great source for up-to-date compliance news and in-depth analysis. There are also free tools, such as an ROI calculator, to help you determine your break-even cost to enter a new state. Tasting room map, so you can print a map of states that you ship to for your tasting room visitors to see at a glance where you ship your wine. And there's a temperature forecasting tool to show you where you can ship to protect your wines from temperature fluctuations during shipping. And last but not least, if you're interested in growing your direct shipping program, we can definitely help. Please get in touch with our Easy Wine licensing department for questions on how you can get your licenses faster and easier than ever before. Now I'm just going to run through some upcoming events that you and your coworkers might want to take advantage of. The first is our wholesale webinar. So if you're a current ShipCompliant wholesale client, you really won't want to miss this presentation of the latest features that are available to you in your account. If you're not a wholesale client, but you're interested in learning more about how this software works, please feel free to join us to get a live walkthrough of ShipCompliant in action. Next, we have our annual end-of-year reporting webinar. It's a great webinar. We're going to be demonstrating tips, tricks, and best practices for our ShipCompliant direct clients to make sure you're taking full advantage of the automation tools that are going to help you streamline your end-of-year reporting workload. The webinar is open to everyone, so if you're curious about ShipCompliant and want to see how this works, please feel free to join us for that. And then June 13th, next year, we have our annual direct shipping seminar. This seminar sells out every year, so please mark this date. It is in 2013. Mark the date on your calendar. It's the industry's premier direct shipping conference. We're going to have dynamic keynote speakers and lots of value-packed breakout sessions, and hope to leave you energized and enthused about growing your business. And you can get more information on all of these events at ShipCompliant.com.